gets that information. Hey, folks, welcome back to the Trailer Park Show. It's a brand new show, and we are we're two people light for right now. We want to go ahead and welcome the people that we have on right now. Of course, we have James Slowpokey Ritter, who's the host of the show. We also have Robert D'Artagnan, and I hope I say that right, that middle name correct. But
D'Artagnan?
It's D'Artagnan. Robert D'Artagnan Thomas, who is City Council candidate for District 10. Excellent gentleman who has been on the show a couple times before, and we've had some great conversations about what's going on with the city. And of course, you have myself. Also coming
I
up,
think Ma has to make some
we have,
say a few things.
we have a couple of introductions that we're going to be doing, or a couple of announcements that we're going to be doing. But obviously, you're noticing that we have a couple of people short right now. Michael Cargill is kind of tied up a little bit right now. He should be coming onto the show shortly. And then also we have Gavino, who
Said he was going to be here.
we understand he's going to be here, but I think I have a strange feeling that allegedly, you know that whole time that we had
Somebody's here.
that went on when he went to Mexico. You know, we were alleging that he had that whole immigration issue that he had to tie up over there. I think he's probably taking care of that stuff over here as well. So, that's going to be the accusation. Although we know it's probably not true, but hey, why not? Let's go ahead and run with it. But we do have some one major announcement with Ms.
All right,
Polky.
here you get the dog. He's all ready for Steelers football. And anyways, as you see, I'm wearing my I Fight Cancer shirt. I got
look at the hair color, right?
a great report from my oncologist for those of you who've been following me through the years with my breast cancer.
There's
That I had a recurrence of it in my bone, but last week I had a CT scan, and my tumors are stable, and I had no new growths. So cross your fingers, thank the Lord. Hey, praise be.
Pass the ammunition.
And that's right. And anyways,
well, hold it up close to the thing so
my
I
little
can see you.
fella. Okay, here he comes. Here comes my
Hey,
baby.
Mike, you come on the show and get ready
We have
to.
a special guest, or we have a special honorary producer on the show, which is the puppy.
Yeah.
So we're very excited to have the
here he
puppy on
is.
here with us.
See,
Get it close enough so I can
he's
see.
all ready for a Steelers game.
All right, come on in here now, Mike.
Come on, Mike.
Slip your down. I'm standing in front of your chair.
I think you're actually standing on the wrong side of the chair, but that's okay.
Oh, yeah. She's only been doing this for how long?
I'm not the weather lady, okay? We got a Scorpio over here, and it's going to have tornado over there. And he's all ready for a Steelers football.
Well,
Set, leash, collar, everything.
So we're
Very
very
stylish dog.
are you hooked on the computer yet?
we're very glad and very pleased
Let me
about
set
the
it up.
great
Give
news.
you that 15, 20 minutes.
We're very glad and very pleased about the news about Mrs. Polky and how she's doing with her treatments and situations. So, and back with us here today we have Michael Cargill, who as we mentioned before, had to take care of some stuff. So he's running a little bit late, but we're glad that he's here. And as we said before, I think Gavino allegedly, is taking care of some immigration stuff going on right now because of his visit to Mexico. So hopefully he's going to find a bride and he'll take care of that stuff today.
So
So
you stay in the country?
hopefully he'll be
We
able to stay in
had
the
some
country.
film for Mike Cargill to play, but we'll have to wait till she gets the
Yeah, we'll
computer up.
talk about that in just a little bit. We had
Yeah,
Michael
we'll get
Cargill's
back to our
been doing some
guest.
great stuff on Come and Talk It, which is a radio show that he has on 1340 AM here in Austin. Great stuff that's going on. In fact, I got to hear the last show, and I do want to touch a little bit about that in a bit, about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment and your conversation with Police Chief Art Acevedo.
Right.
That was probably, I do have to say this though, that was probably one of the most civil conversations I've ever heard him have with you.
Is that right?
I think that's what it was. I mean, he was really civil. I mean, it was pretty cool. Now the
Did he
selfie
know you're having that lawyer on there too?
That's right. I have to have my attorney with me anytime I'm talking to the law enforcement.
And I'm kidding about that last part. I gotta say, I'm kidding about that last part. But a great conversation. We'll expand a little bit about that. And I believe Mrs. Polky is going to be taking care of some videos for us to go ahead and talk a little bit. One about your recent interview on KEYE. About the knife law, and then a few other items that we want to bring up in regards to guns and all that fun
Well,
stuff.
are we going to go with Robert Thomas for a while and then take a
Yes.
break and go to him and then go back?
Let's go ahead and talk a little bit about our guest. As we mentioned before, we have Robert Thomas, who's a candidate for city council.
I guess we could mention that the other candidates all seem to back out for some
We
reason.
did, yes. We
I
asked,
think they're terrified of you. You guys asked tough questions. They were worried you might intimidate them.
it's that whole Latino limbo thing. I'm telling you, that's what it is. And then you got Michael Cargill. I mean, I gotta tell you, there's some tough questions that he asked a couple of people.
It is.
And it's just like,
That's
man.
true.
And then of course they don't want to talk about pot. So,
Yeah, we've been trying to avoid the pot thing.
well, Us.
You know, they're talking about
everybody on this side. Everybody on
everybody's
this side of the table has. It's over here on the other end. But yeah, we had invited several people on the last minute. One was sick apparently.
One of them, eye
And
infection,
so
probably.
so we hope for the
correctly.
best. The other one just decided to back out allegedly for other engagement situations. But I believe you're correct. They just don't want to be asked those tough questions that people want to know. So yes.
Well,
Be
I
like,
just-
would they support a pro-marijuana resolution in the city
you see,
council?
there you go. You see there.
I'm just excited that you all create this opportunity and create through public access the opportunity to have issues addressed, and that you bring candidates on to give us opportunity to visit.
Well, in
with
that
you.
case, I'll have to do my plugs for Channel Austin. You are correct. Some cities, like Laredo, is one, but some cities know how to utilize public access channels. And one of them is, you are correct. We've had all kinds of candidates on down here in the past, and will in the future. And we've already had this cycle a whole bunch. There's Channel Austin here. Public access is you should come down here. Thinking my little e-flower I write, either use it or lose it.
That's right.
You know, it's quiet down there. This place used to really be humming.
Well,
Various reasons, I
would,
guess.
I would say that it's probably rebuilt. It's in a rebuilding phase right now. So those things are going to happen.
I need a card or something. You didn't put his information up on my thingy.
All you gotta do, do you have a card?
In the car.
Well, now just email her
No, she's got it. She's got it.
We got some fan support for Mr. Thomas, who has already guaranteed me that if I say anything inappropriate, she's going to throw a shoe at me.
Well, I
I'm trying to
had
do
to
as best
plug
as
Channel Austin there while we could.
So,
Because he does bring up a good point. This is unfortunately it's live though, so if you make a mistake, it's kind of tough to.
exactly. So,
Well, first, tell us a little bit about yourself and what district you're running in. And
Sure, Michael. So I'm Robert Thomas. I'm running in District 10. I think it's critical to understand a little bit about my background. I grew up in Conroe, in northwest of Houston, and grew up in immensely poor means, quite honestly. And I come from a background. My mother, honestly, was the strength of our family and the economic engine of our family. And we talk about things that make you and make who you are, and hopefully who I've been as a man and as a businessman, as an attorney. The principles that I rely on really in many instances come from her. I think of and remember seeing her sitting on her little sewing table on the weekends, trying to balance our budget. And we had the poor man's, you got one for me, Pokey? Thank you. we had the poor man's line of credit, and that was high interest credit cards. And I would watch her, and we just knew when Mom sat down to try to figure out our finances, you left her alone because she would invariably end up crying because she was trying to figure out, how do I pay all of these things? My stepfather, honestly, was a self-employed painter, house painter. And when he left in the morning, you never knew if he was going to a job, going to find a job, or was going to drink whatever profit there might have been. So I remember when my mom got her first job as a civil service employee, or with the United States Postal Service. I guess I was probably about 5th, maybe 6th grade, but I remember the energy changed in our home. I could remember feeling the lightness that my mom brought to our home because for the first time, we were going to have an opportunity. Now, I didn't appreciate that as a 5th or a 6th grader. Oh, looking in hindsight, I realize it, but for the first time, we were going to have a stable income. But from my mother's perspective, even though we qualified in the early days for public assistance, for free and reduced lunches, my mom's attitude was, we're not going to do that. So long as I'm healthy, so long as I can work, if I have to work 3 jobs, I'll work 3 jobs. And you're going to have a sandwich. It may be a bologna sandwich, but it's going to be your bologna sandwich. Now, why do I talk about that? I talk about that because those are some of the core fundamental principles that we were instilled with. When I became the other thing that was critically important is she said, our way out of poverty, your way out of poverty is an education. And she just drove that in. And my little sister is dyslexic. We didn't find out that she was dyslexic until after she quit high school in 10th grade and many years later when she went back to get her GED. But I didn't have dyslexia. I was apparently somewhat gifted academically, and so I got great teachers. We lived on the wrong side of the tracks, but I got the good teachers. And so education became a foundation, a principle. It's one of the reasons why I'm so passionate in my volunteer service for all kids, all of our public school children. So that's a bit of the kind of the core background. I moved to Austin in 1990 to go to law school. I met my wife, Amy Shaw, now Amy Shaw Thomas, from a very active family. Her family, her mother was a founding member of the Austin Area Urban League. Her mother was on the Ballet Austin board before it was Ballet Austin, when it was the Austin Civic Ballet, was instrumental in getting that converted to a professional, somebody's phone. So
Somebody's playing video games.
somebody's playing video games back there. The point of telling you all that is I married
It's
into
a
a,
sharp trailer park crew back there.
they're good.
Video games on TV.
But I married into a family that was actively committed to public service. I came from a mom who, bless her soul, passed away a couple years ago from lung cancer, but who believed that we were responsible for making a difference in our own lives, using education and opportunity to make a difference in our lives, believed we needed to be fiscally responsible, do whatever I could to never follow in the traps that, that we were historically. Came here to law school, married Amy, subsequently ended up going back to UT to get my MBA from the University of Texas Redmond McComb School of Business. Practiced law here, invested in businesses, but most importantly, I got very, very engaged in the community. So I served as the chair of the Safe Place for domestic violence and sexual assault prevention. I was on the board and the governance chair for the Austin Child Guidance Center, which is dedicated to providing mental health services to low and poverty level families where their children are suffering some form of mental illness. Critically important to get mental health care to those children because that's so devastating at that level in particular, because if you don't have resources when your kid is sick, that can be destructive to a family. You know how bad it is when your kid is sick just with the flu or something and you've got to miss work if you've got some kind of... So that's kind of the background. And from there I started investing in businesses here in Austin, still had my law firm. Then I moved full-time into business ownership. I think you remember, Michael, from before when we talked a little bit about small businessman to small businessman respecting how hard it is. And in 2007, I sold my practice to my partners, my law partners, and I moved full-time into the business world. And I purchased the largest granite countertop company in central United States, then Top Solutions, and restructured it and did great things in it just in time for the 2008 construction collapse.
Oh, wow.
Economic collapse. So that destroyed. I watched small business people lose their everything. Our customers were filing bankruptcy. Other small businesses were desperately trying to figure out how to hang on. I'm very, very proud for us because of the background that my mother gave me. Because of that, I was not going to file bankruptcy. It wasn't a corporate bankruptcy. I was not going to let that business fail. And we brought the principles that my mother taught me, mainly just from watching what she did, to that business, and that business survived. Those are the principles that I brought to every business that I had. Sound, fiscally responsible practices that I think are core and fundamental to a healthy home, personal budget, to a healthy business, and I think by extension that applies to a city government.
Now, what are some of the things that interest you in District 10? Or what do you think some of the things that the constituents in District 10 are concerned about?
Sure. Well, first of all, I've lived almost all over the city. I've lived in South Austin when I came here to go to law school. I lived in north of University and off of Red River when I was in law school. I then moved when Amy and I got engaged. I moved to Northwest Hill. So I've been in my family. Amy moved from Northeast Austin to Northwest Austin in, I believe, 1979 or 1980. I moved there when Amy and I got engaged in 1991. So I've been in the community a long time, and her family's roots are in the community a long time. I've been very, very active in the schools from Doss all the way through Anderson, PTSAs, all those things. So I really have a strong understanding of what I hope is Austin generally, because of the benefit of Amy living here so long, but also Northwest Austin and West Austin. traffic. Traffic congestion is an absolute choker. We are bound in West Austin by Mopac, the river, 360, 183, and then further out 620. Those are some of the most congested, difficult, 2222, of course, some of the most difficult streets and arterials in the city. So traffic congestion is a horrible concern, or a great concern for West Austin. Affordability. A lot of people do not appreciate that affordability is a citywide issue. It does not limit itself to any particular geographic or economic strata. I am block walking throughout West Austin, and I'm having people tell me over and over again, I could not afford to buy my house today. The taxes are eating me alive. A gentleman in Tarrytown told me that in 1 year, the dirt he lived, that his house sat on, had gone up under the appraisal district 100%. He said it would be the last year. I knocked on another door of a very prominent former Supreme Court justice, and he told me I could not, in Tarrytown, former Supreme Court justice, he said, I could not afford my house today. I don't know how long I can stay here. I've heard that story in Davenport Ranch. I've heard that in Great Hills. I've heard that in Northwest Hills. I've heard it in Jester Estates. I have heard it throughout all of District 10. And a lot of people make the assumption that it is a quote-unquote wealthy district. But I'm here to tell you that affordability is a relative term. And as I tell people, it doesn't matter what your balance sheet says. Your balance sheet may say you have a whole bunch of stuff. You know, you may be wealthy. What matters is what your income statement says. What revenue do you have on a monthly basis to be able to pay the carrying cost of holding your stuff? And you can be paper wealthy, and in reality, you could have real trouble paying for everything that you have. The issue with that, of course, is a lot of people's wealth is tied up in their home, right? So
Number one investment.
it's your number one investment. So while that home may be expensive, as soon as that, forget what's happening on with the tax increases, if because of property, particularly the way our property tax structure works, particularly once you become fixed income or have an impact to your income, if you can't afford to pay for your property taxes, that you never truly own your home. So there is great concern about affordability. The city fees, which we are calling the hidden taxes, are just horrible. People are very concerned in the district about inefficiencies, waste of city monies. You know, at a $3.3 billion budget, people are really, really frustrated whether all of that money is
something in here real quick?
You betcha.
We were at, I had two candidates, Julian Lamont Fernandez and Edward Rios, and we were at a meet and greet type thing. And Julian Lamont Fernandez had a thick bunch of pieces of paper. The city of Austin has more employees at $100,000 and above than any other city in the state.
Houston?
We're talking Houston, Dallas,
Dallas,
Fort Worth, San
El
Antonio,
Paso?
El
More than
Paso.
any.
That's nothing.
So
We
the
have
I hate to say,
more,
I was from El Paso.
But San
100,000
Antonio?
and above
San Antonio.
than any,
Than
we are
any
the
city
number
in-
one.
Wow.
We have more employees that are drawing that kind of paycheck from the city than any other town in Texas.
And I'm not saying that those folks are not doing a fantastic job and they're not delivering a service. However, when you have that type of discrepancy versus other cities that are much larger,
Wow.
doing those it makes you wonder. So the very first thing, on an economic point, affordability, I would bring an audit or performance review to every department in the city, very top of the city to the very bottom part of the city. Just like John Sharp did with the state of Texas. He went in, used the comptroller's office.
That's old time here, huh?
Well, but look
not
what he
that
did.
old.
But he revolutionized the delivery of services. He shrunk the departments that no longer needed, state agencies that no longer needed to exist, or combined state agencies. He looked for duplication to make sure, why are we doing it across 3 or 4 agencies when we only need one agency to do it? He brought another thing I saw, I serve on the board of the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. The governor appointed me. What's critically important about that is the last 2 years, that board and that amazing executive director and his staff have brought business principles of organization, management, and efficiency to that agency. That agency is now half the size that it was 2 years ago, delivering the same and better service. Now, some of the
Half the price or three-quarters the price? or-
absolutely, and some of the now, in fairness, some of the functions were transferred over to the general land office, but the core services that entity delivers billions of dollars, manages, oversees billions of dollars of assets and programs on behalf of housing for housing needs and across the entire state of Texas, as well as community services, community affairs. If we can do that at the state agency, if John Sharp showed us how we can do that with his performance audits, there's no reason we can't do that at the city and figure out, I believe, with $3.3 billion budget, how to find some savings, how to reduce some duplication. I'm not meaning to suggest there's fraud, but there are certainly inefficiencies. You can't have inefficiencies. You can't be that large and not have inefficiencies.
Right.
So how do we get, when we want to talk about affordability, when we want to reduce the cost to the citizens, we've got to reduce the budget. That's the direct thing that city council has control of. If we reduce our expenditures, we can then reduce the tax rate, or at least when the property taxes are exploding the way they are, to try to reduce the tax rate to at least maintain revenue neutral effect for the homeowner.
Okay. So you brought up some really good ideas, and perfect ideas that people really should need to hear. What would you look, if somebody were to ask you today, give me some examples of where would you think you can probably trim the fat right now? If you were in city, if you're in,
Yes.
Look
City
at the
department or-
look at the horrible look. It's not fair until I get in there. That's why I said a performance audit. Let's not speculate. Let's go get the facts. Right? It is a disservice to the citizens of Austin. It's a disservice to the hardworking employees of the city of Austin to go in and to willy-nilly to throw that. But I've talked to enough senior budget officials, former senior budget officials at the city, and assistant city managers to give me a clear understanding that there are real needs for this type of reform. But here's what I can say. Okay? Here's what I do think is critically important. I think that we need to bring a management accountability, a level of accountability to management, rather, at City Hall. When you have as Mandy Deely, who is one of my opponents, where she sat on the
She was invited.
she voted on, and I can't remember the exact committee, she voted for the Waller Creek Plaza, the Waller Creek Tunnel project, as well as the intake, right? She was on that commission that voted for that now is 16 feet tall and is going to cost how many millions? At one point they thought it was going to be 30 plus million. Now I understand that the city council thinks it may be as low as 6 million. Look at the overruns at the water treatment plant 4. What's that? I can't remember how many hundred millions of dollars that's over. Look at the downtown library. Why did we not take a fraction of the monies for the new downtown library? Not that it's not going to be beautiful, but we have aging, decrepit branch libraries that have seen little to no, and I'm talking 40, 50 years, no renovations. We could have taken a fraction of the money that's being spent to build that brand new, beautiful, and they talk about wanting to have this a walkable, livable city where you have nodes. Well, your branch libraries are in your nodes. Northwest Hills, the Quarry Library, Howson Library in Terrytown, if you've been to those, they are dilapidated. I have looked, the newest libraries we have in District 10, and one of them isn't even in District 10, is what's the old, I'm drawing a blank on the old, is it American Theater off of Hancock Lane? They converted that old theater into a library 20 years ago, but it's still a very nice facility. And then on I believe it's Spicewood, we have the new Northwest Branch Library, brand new, beautiful. But what they did was they updated it so it meets the needs of the citizens in that area today with technology. It's built for today's needs, e-books, those kinds of things that make it make sense. So one of the things we can do, and I can tell you, multiple people have told me who interact with the city, talk about settlements to take place at much higher dollars than need to take place so that they keep things quiet. I'm told about
well, we had that recent settlement that was done to get the police department.
Keep things quiet,
Keep things
yeah.
quiet was what, $1.4 million or $1.6 million,
now that's a travesty.
and that's a travesty.
Now that's
You're right.
the fact that young man is dead with a gun with the barrel imprint on his neck. I don't know what happened. Isn't that that's what you're talking about?
Exactly.
That was just a travesty.
Yeah.
Right. So but I'm talking about things where construction. I've been told there are situations where construction issues have cropped up in a dispute between the city and a contractor, and then the contractor still submits increased adjustments and gets those covered as well. Now again, those are I have not seen the documents myself. Yeah, well, my point is there needs to be a level of accountability that exists in our homes and exists in our businesses. If you don't have that, if you think that your checkbook is just open, then you buy your way into whatever you're going to buy your way
Now,
into.
what do you think about the fire department and the fact that sometime down the road, because we have this, what is it, a 5-year hold where we can't hire any firefighters, that we're going to actually have a problem somewhere down the road on trying to get more firefighters here in Austin?
That's a great question, Michael, and actually you didn't realize it, but that's just a softball across the plate. My frustration is that we're not focused on our core municipal services. Instead of putting $28 million over a boardwalk, which would have been wonderful, it's wonderful, right? It's beautiful, it beautifies our city.
Right.
But Chief Kerr said last Monday, was speaking at the, it'll come to me in a second, but the candidate forums that have been hosted each week. She stated that every year since I believe it was 2008, 2007, 2008, she has requested 6 new firehouses be built because of the demand, the city demand. When you have 110 people coming in a day, 40,000 people a year, and we're growing the way we're growing, she has said we need a minimum of 6. And every single budget cycle, she asked for those same 6 firehouses, and every time they're rejected. She also said that to build a new firehouse in a densely part of the inner city, costs a minimum of $10 million. To build in the outer areas, which makes sense, like schools, people pull your schools out and because they know that number one, the real estate's cheaper, growth is going in that direction. It would only cost $3 million.
Wow.
So 10 years from now, to your point, when we have not put our resources where they belong, prioritized our expenditures to the core municipal services, we're going to end up spending $10 million because eventually we're going to say we have so stretched our ability, we've taxed our first responders so greatly, which we're already doing, police, EMS, and fire, that when it comes time to pay the piper to meet those core city services, who doesn't have the fortitude to make those priorities? Again, there's nothing wrong with that boardwalk, but instead of selling us a $90 million transportation bond that resulted in what was supposed to be $14 million to build a boardwalk, with then on top of overruns, cost overruns was another $14 million for a total of $28 million, why are we not putting our resources in the core services to take care and fund our current growth and infrastructure?
Now, what would you say we should do with traffic on I-35?
If I had a magic wand, it'd be fixed. Everyone I've spoken to, and I've had extensive conversations with experts, say that traffic on I-35, the demand, because we've not kept up with those growth, because Austin had been a no growth, no expansion, no east-west thoroughfare, because of those things, we are so far behind now in whatever roadway expansion would have been reasonable and feasible that the pent-up demand for the transportation demand is so bad that any construction that is done on I-35 will immediately result in gridlock again.
It'll be obsolete before it's open.
That's what they're saying. That doesn't mean we don't do anything, right? So I believe what I'm going to say at this is I'm going to draw a distinction between myself and Miss Deely again, because I've been told Miss Deely, and I don't know if this is true, but the experts have told me that these races are starting to shape up, and it's starting to really, from their perspective, becoming a race between Miss Deely and me. And if that's the case, then I think it's critically important to draw some important distinctions. Miss Deely, on July the 6th, last week, at the Atria Retirement Living Center, from 11 o'clock to noon, met with residents. She and Tina Cannon apparently were both there. And at that event, Miss Deely said that she supported the rail proposition, the one that was passed by. Now, I believe we have to do something. I agree with her. We have got to come up with a global, comprehensive, multimodal plan that starts addressing transportation solutions for all of Austin. And it's not going to just be roads. I do think it needs to include roads. We cannot not build roads. We're not going to have bike lanes. I hear people in my community frustrated beyond belief because we're putting bike lanes in, but B-Cycle doesn't have a station north of 2222. In fact, I don't even think they have it just south of 2222, right? But we're taking roads that are too small, that are 2 lane each direction now, making them 1 lane and putting a bicycle lane in.
That makes a lot of sense.
West Austin is saying, wait, we've got congestion issues. But you know what I was told? The city planners for decades said, well, that's the direction we want to go in. So we're going to force it down the throats of the city, whatever our perspective is versus what our reality is. And I got that sometimes change is difficult. And I get it, that in order to bring new policy initiatives to the table, sometimes you've got to change the way the culture and the thinking is. But are we going to truly change our automobile culture so fast, particularly in the hills of Westlake, of Davenport Ranch, or Great Hills, or Jester, or Northwest Hills, where we can't walk?
Yeah, you get you a 50-year-old man out riding a bicycle there, huh?
Well, you know,
100 degrees outside.
in 100-degree heat.
One of the things that we've asked every candidate here and every show that we've done is the talk of staggering hours. This is something that I actually talked about. I gotta take credit for this one. I actually talked about this on my podcast back in 2012, where the possibility of staggering work hours.
Have you gone on my website? You've been on my website.
Yes. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. I think that we have to look at all options on the table. We've got to get commuters. I mean, this week alone, the congestion on Mopac is noticeably better. And the heavy congestion time is much shorter. Why? Because we're about to go to school start. So we have a lot of people that are out on vacation right now. So we've got commuters off the road. That's the only way that the experts say we're going to address it. So what do we need to do? If we're not going to be able to put rail reasonably throughout the city, if we're not going to be able to come up with a comprehensive global bus rapid transit bus lines that will actually be reliable and that people will want to use all across the city, if we're not going to use cost-effective, reasonable modes of transportation today and invest in that today, then we need to figure out other ways to get people off the road. And that means working from home and telecommuting. It means staggered start times. It means compressed work weeks. Like when I worked at the City of Houston, I was a assistant city attorney at the City of Houston. We worked 4 days. 4 days on, 10 hours a day. Now, I always worked from home because as an assistant city attorney, I always had cases and work I had to do. So I'd work at home on Fridays or Monday, whatever my day off was. Right. But we had people we have to think outside of the box, and we've got to use public policy to incent our major employers to help get people off the roads. That's one of the ways, the creative solutions. We also have to, I was talking to a gentleman that told me that the City of Austin has invested, City of Austin or Capital Metro, in the last 29 years has invested $1.9 billion in buses.
Bought everybody a car.
What happened with that money? We know the issues that Capital Metro had, years ago, 5, 6, 7 years ago about their financial circumstances, situation. I understand that they've admirably come out of that now. But what analysis have we done about where there's real bus needs? And why are we not putting in order for public transportation to be used, it has to be convenient to location, it has to be frequent to make it reasonable, right? And it has to be reliable and clean, right? So when they put the new Lamar line
I'm a
in,
big bus fan, so yeah, I'll agree with all that.
but what did they do? They put in that new bus rapid transit.
You gotta
Pokey.
walk too far to get to your stop, and if you miss the bus, it'll be 30, 45 minutes for the next one come.
That's exactly right. So what did the outcry? That was a foreseeable, understandable result. They lost ridership dropped. People screamed on Facebook.
They raised the price and tell you, we're gonna improve service for you.
It didn't
No,
happen.
you're not?
That's what I'm saying. The other thing that I've learned, and this Ben Ware article from the Statesman was just powerful. It was super powerful in exposing some of the concerns. And again, I am not anti-rail. I am for a plan that solves and starts to address our transportation crisis. But I'm not for a plan that is so expensive that it would cause us to max out our tax rate, the city's tax rate, that would preclude us from then being able to use bond monies or bonding capacities in the future for at least 10 years, at least as I see it reported. And also, and most critically, is at the end of the day not going to solve congestion. That's a problem. I mean, that's just, and then to find out that we do not have a true, comprehensive, citywide transportation plan that includes a 10, 20, 30-year plan like most planning cities will do.
Yes, sir.
you know, that says, here's what our plan is for our roadways so that we can start budgeting and executing against it. Here's what our plan is for public transportation. Here's what our community, here, you can go and talk. So what, and then the final straw, and again, I am not anti-rail. What I am is anti-waste and a waste of our precious tax dollars that may not get us. And the fact that the city of Austin is doing this, that the city council is doing this complicated mixture of a rail proposition merged in with, of $600 million, merged in with some kind of a pseudo promise of $400 million spent on roads. And by the way, you have to vote it all in one package.
Right.
The voters are not dumb. Let's quit. Transparency demands that voters have the opportunity. Sorry about that,
Well,
brother.
the last time we had transportation, I wound up using foul language that I'm not supposed to use
Oh.
on live TV.
Well, yeah.
So I'm
but
kind of touchy on the transportation
Well,
issue.
and I'm sorry, but what my point I'm trying to make is
No, you make good points, but I'm saying, yeah.
up or down is
Very
fine.
good
The-
point.
The citizens deserve the right to vote on this plan. A smart group of people have
How
worked
many
very,
times
very
we
hard.
voted down before we get it anyway? It'll be different now with 10-1.
Well,
Well,
and
no, not yet,
Maybe.
because this is on the ballot.
this is on the ballot, so it's going to happen before the new council. My thoughts are separate roadways and rail and let the citizens vote on those independently. And on top of that, quit issuing certificates of obligation bonds and taking our fees and financing these large public works projects, all of them, you know, no question that they're good purposes, there's valid needs, but ask the voters, like the Statesman editorial board said, $78 million for the buyout of the homes in Onion Creek. That should not be done by issuing certificates of obligation debt and for transferring the fees from the drainage fees. That should be done by going to the voter and asking for the voter. Make the case and let's ask the voter to support our community.
Right.
It's critically important.
Now, we got a couple of other questions that we want to ask you, because we're going to, before.
Well,
we
but
move
let
on to
me,
the
I don't
decision.
want to leave this first responder issue, because you asked a question. Another thing that I need to draw a distinction, at that same Atria Retirement Living Center, Miss Deely said that she wanted to shave, and let me make sure I say it right, I would save money in the budget by shaving the amount we spend on first responders.
Ooh.
Now, let me get this straight.
Hold on there now. Now, she
Ooh.
was invited, she was gonna be here, but
Ooh.
she had some reason not to come. I can't remember what that was.
Well, and I'm
I
sorry.
wish she was here now, because I'd like to hear.
I
side of this.
I wanted the opportunity, but that's why I was excited when I heard she was here, because I could not believe she said
Because
that.
we're going to have a major problem with firefighters here in the next 5 to 10 years.
We have a problem today. We have
They're being worked pretty hard. I do know that much from the firehouse down the street from my house.
we have been, you know, they say the standard is there's a standard of 2 police per, I think it's 2 police per, I'm gonna get it wrong, per 1,000, right? That's the method that you follow. If we had 2 police per 1,000, and understanding that we're having about 40,000 people coming here, we would need another, assuming that maintained a constant level of 40,000 people a year, we would need to have a minimum of 80 police officers, new police officers every year, just to be able to maintain that parity, just maintain that standard. But since 2008, we have never met a hiring class to meet that increase at all. Here's the real problem with that. Now, on top of that, that means it stretches our existing officers very thin. But where are they cutting? They're cutting in the APD administration, the rank and file civil servants who work there, processing data, paperwork, et cetera. We lose that in the crime analysts who look at the crime across the city and draw correlations to help solve crimes. So if you see that there's a lot of stuff going on in North Central
Increased
Austin,
patrols here, patrols there.
that's right, and they draw correlations and help the detectives and the officers solve crimes, but we have a backlog because we have a decrease of folks there. The reality is, Michael, if we do not reprioritize and focus on, let me put it this way, there is no great city in the United States, in this world I'll venture, that doesn't start first with great public safety. If you can't make
And
a
then
phone...
police, fire, EMS.
Police, fire, EMS. You know, we have come to find out we have this phenomenal 911 call center. It's just state of the art. We're already maxed out there. We share that. I toured that. I toured the emergency command center where, like when we had the floods, the October floods, where they bring the state, federal, local, all the different agencies together to coordinate. Phenomenal. I went down and I toured the floor where EMS, fire, and APD work from. They are packed in there. There's no space, and there is no budget, and we've known it. And there's no plan, or there may be a plan, but there's no funding to expand that structure. So what happens when you pick up the phone, Pokey, and you say, I need 911, my wife has had an emergency? What happens at one point when the wait is too long or that there's an issue with that? You cannot have an amazing city without your first responders, and that's your police, your fire, and your EMS being adequately staffed. That is a contract.
You start
That's a
thinking about this stuff when you get a little older too, like that.
It's a contract with the citizens. I agree to live in this city in exchange for basic services. I will pay my taxes.
Why we live in cities, we
In
want to
ex-
have certain things.
Police,
Paved roads,
fire, EMS, roads, water,
drink water right out the tap. Push it all goes away.
you know, and we're losing by the city of Austin Water's own estimates, we're losing over 3 billion gallons of water, clean, potable drinking water every single year because of our leaking infrastructure and pipes.
And that's going to be a major problem.
That's a major problem. So I'm sorry, I wanted to just
it's
make
okay.
sure.
That's quite all right.
I mean, in other words, I think it's critically important we draw these distinctions. Those were her words. She made that statement, right? She made that statement, and I'm not a shill. I'm not a shill for anybody. I'm going to do my job. But I live in the city, and I'm concerned about fire protection. In Northwest Austin, in particular, we live in the canyons. And the fire department have told us we do not have adequate resources to fight a canyon fire. When we watched the blazes coming from Steiner Ranch and River Place several years ago, people were watching those blazes from the canyon side, watching. They were heading our way. People were terrified. We don't have the resources for that. We don't have the firehouses that the fire chief has asked to help battle those things. When I have been working on crime and safety issues in the Northwest Austin community for a very, very long time. I organized, now probably 4 years ago, something where a meeting between APD and the community. We had 120 plus people show up to ask the police, and Chief Acevedo was great. He did not come, but he sent his absolute top brass all the way through detectives to explain the issues that were going on. But the reality is, we are told that because of the strain on the police officers and because of major violence against personal crimes in other parts of the city, that patrols and response times in our part of the city often suffer because we typically have property crime. And so as soon as 911 confirms that there's no life threatened, since I've rode around with APD,
Right.
now I understand the way they prioritize those calls.
Correct.
You're lucky, sometimes you can wait 2 hours for somebody to get there. If you don't feel safe in your home, that's a fundamental problem. And it doesn't matter where you live. And if you're paying taxes, you should be entitled to the same sense of security in your city, regardless of where you live.
What do you think about that fee that you have to pay to the police department for the alarm monitoring? Like if you have an alarm system at your house, you have to pay this set fee, even though you're not using any of the services, because say that entire year, you don't call your alarm company is not contacting the police department for them to visit your home, but you still have to pay that fee regardless.
I write that check every year and I hate it. That having been said, I appreciate, as it was explained to me by a very nice lady at the city when I called to say, why am I paying this fee and what's it for? She said it was to help offset the costs of the police having to respond to the false alarms, and that was a real charge, and that they had administrative work associated with that. I've not dug in, Michael, but I will tell you this, fundamentally, if there is a fee collected, I want to see transparency and accountability. I want to know why it's collected. I want to know that you're collecting the very minimum necessary to be able to effectuate the result, the good policy result you want, and I want to see the benefit of you collecting that fee for what and if you're going to collect it, use it for what you said it was for.
Right.
And if you collect too much, either give it back or stop collecting.
Now, what about the property taxes? That was a big question, a big article that came up on KXAN last week. The city of Austin is looking at trying to crunch some numbers so that they can try to reduce the property taxes, I believe, as low as by 20%.
I've not seen that.
Yeah, they're looking at trying to figure out how to But they want to do, what City of Austin wants to do is try to offer a homestead exemption.
Oh, no, I absolutely, that's one of the things I want for affordability. I have been pushing a homestead exemption before other mayoral candidates put it out there. Go look at, I sent out a mailer in June, and that's exactly what I said. We needed a homestead exemption. There is no reason why we cannot have a homestead exemption, particularly for our long-term Austin residents who are moving to a place of fixed income, right? That is an absolutely fundamental, easy mechanism that can be phased in that will help allow people to stay in their homes. Absolutely, that's critically important.
Excellent, excellent. Well, we want to ask you a couple of other questions, and then we're going to move on to something.
Sure, and
that's
I'm
kind of-
thinking I've been very wordy. I apologize.
No, that's quite all right. No,
you're
we
good,
really
you're good.
appreciate it. We really appreciate the fact that you're going into detail, whereas some other people that have been on the show can't do that and not be as explicit as what you're able to tell us. These are some questions that were brought up by some people that understood, that knew that you were coming in, and they wanted to ask a few other questions, just like the homestead exemption. You know, you're basically asking people to hire you for this job.
That's right.
So, you know, as people who have done interviews for people before, like I used to at one time, got a couple questions for you, and then these were the questions that were asked. Can you elaborate on your past decisions that you've made, you know, in your career that makes you capable of doing the job as a city council member?
Absolutely. So I think you elaborate and you say perfectly, we're asking the citizens, the voters of City of Austin to hire us.
Can we trust you to make the right decision?
And can we trust
Your
you?
district is for all of us.
That's exactly right, for all of us and our district. I'm going to put the city first and then the district second, because I think that's critically important. Number one, the city council is like a board of directors. Again, putting it in business terms, it's like a board of directors. The board of directors is responsible for hiring the CEO. The board of directors sets the policy and then holds the CEO accountable for executing that policy.
Your new text message right now.
Read that new text message, brother.
It's the bat phone right there. So.
Is responsible for making sure that that CEO executes that policy effectively, efficiently, and for the best benefit.
She says we gotta hurry up to play bid.
Yes. Oh, you go.
Okay, the benefit of the shareholders, in this instance, the city, the citizens. I will give you 3 instances. First, on the AISD Community Bond Oversight Committee, we oversee and are responsible for overseeing over $1.3 billion of citizen-approved monies to go to the construction and maintenance, well, mainly the construction of facilities, and in some instances, maintenance and upkeep, but of AISD buildings. On top of that, when there are monies left over, the Community Bond Oversight Committee
Oh,
has,
yeah, we're down to 10 minutes.
I'll make it quick, has actually approved, had been requested and made the recommendation to the Board of Trustees to redirect and deploy leftover monies to the tune of over $100 million, real money, at the Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs. I sit on a board where literally just last month, because of the policy decisions and then the votes and the award of in this instance, tax credits, issued tax credits which had the effect of between $500 million and $600 million of new affordable housing for low-income, seniors, et cetera, all across the state of Texas. We oversee a portfolio of programs, monies of billions of dollars. So, and most importantly, on a personal level, I alluded to it earlier, when the economy crashed in beginning of 2009, where there were literally millions and millions of dollars on the line at my company, and 50 plus employees, and all of our vendors, we were able to work through, because of fiscal responsibility, real life situation of restructuring our debt, restructuring and reevaluating our expenses, and getting them in line so that we could survive. I'll go back to what my mom taught me. It's the principles and values. You live within your means. You mean what you say, and you say what you mean. Your handshake should mean something. And most importantly, you're not perfect. You're not a perfect human being. So be prepared to say I'm sorry and learn from mistakes and truly learn. But be responsible. And everything I've done in my professional career, in my board appointments, and I'm a hands-on guy. I get in and I try to make a difference. So I believe that those examples. And to my knowledge, and I'll qualify it, no one else has had my background or my experience, my educational background, my professional experience, or my board level of experience and responsibility of managing the kinds of dollars.
Yeah, you've
Billions of
already
dollars.
made all kinds of on-the-spot decisions, you might say.
Every
I'm sure
day.
you did every day. 'Cause a lot of people really don't realize that when you hire, you vote for a candidate, he's going to sit at that desk, and stuff's going to cross that desk, and he's not going to be. He's going to have to. We're going to have to trust whoever that is to make a decision
Yeah,
in our best interest.
7 minutes.
yeah.
Excellent.
So,
Well, sir, Mr. Thomas, we want to thank you. Let me go ahead and give out some places where people can find you and get some more information. You have voterobertthomas.com, which is your website. You can go ahead and get a whole bunch more information, which is, I've got to say this right now, it's got a lot more information and a lot more meat on what's on here than
There's Facebook page there.
than what other candidates have that we've talked to so far. So this is phenomenal. I love the website. Then of course you have your Facebook page,
Yes, sir.
which is Robert Thomas for City.
it's Vote Robert Thomas,
Well, Robert Thomas. Okay.
Facebook
perfect.
/Vote Robert Thomas.
Excellent, excellent.
And then my Twitter is Robert Thomas for Texas. So please,
Awesome.
please follow me. And I'm going to look at you and I'm going to ask you. I would love your support. District 10. I'm part of you. My family has lived in that district. I've raised my children there. My children are graduates from Anderson High School. I have had my office there and certainly raised my family there. I've been active in our schools, in our neighborhood. Vice President of the Northwest Austin Civic Association. I'm committed to our constituents, I'm committed to our residents, and I ask for your support in November. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you,
Well,
sir.
awesome.
Want to hang
Fantastic
around and
stuff.
watch some of these films?
Sure. Well, I want to
Well,
see.
we've
I want to
got-
see this guy.
Well, we may not be able to get to the one video about you and KEYE right now. I do want to transition over to some of the stuff that you've talked about a little bit.
Yeah, we only got like 6 minutes left.
Exactly.
This
But we
goes
do
off
want to.
at
But there's some
15:30.
stuff. You had some great stuff that came on your show, on Come and Talk It. Yesterday, last Friday, yesterday you had your Come and Talk It episode where you had Police Chief Acevedo, and you were
Right.
talking about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment,
Absolutely.
and the rules on how I guess the police officers deal with, I guess, search and seizure,
Right.
and being a concealed gun owner. So now there was some miscommunication that I was hearing a little bit. I guess he had a bad cell in that area.
Oh
But
yeah,
if you can-
he was going in and out on his cell phone.
yeah, which of course he won't be able to do that if this whole ruling gets passed by City Council. So tell us a little bit about the conversation that you had.
Right. We talked with Austin Police Chief Acevedo about the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. You know, some of the things we were talking about was the search and seizure. You know, being able to search a person's cell phone, and then also we talked about the blood draw. You know, being able to draw a person's blood without their permission by getting a warrant and all that good kind of stuff. And we kind of went into eventually talking about I guess city councils talking about coming up with some kind of rule or a new law where you can't talk on your cell phone at all. It needs to be, hands free. So then the conversation went over to the Austin Police Department with, what is he going to do, what the chief is going to do with his officers, and their laptop and stuff like that. They have a good policy for that. So it was a good show. We covered a lot of information in a very short time.
Yeah, it was.
Well, I heard it was good. There was one part that I liked the part about the city council. Well, I had something about that with him here. The Fourth Amendment part, your lawyer said one thing and the chief kind of blew it off. Which you kind of had to expect, sort of. The searching your cell phone.
Now they still can't. No, they can't do that without a warrant right now. That's already been approved.
Correct.
That's already been taken
Well-
care of. That's already been laid down on the law. But how are they doing that with? Are they trying to bypass that whole thing, or are you trying to make a comparison with the search and seizure of bodily fluids? To,
Well, what I asked was by them actually drawing your blood, did that violate the Fifth Amendment, your Fifth Amendment right, by having your bodily fluids actually testify against you? So I was just trying to throw them off just a little bit.
How'd that go?
he
Actually, was pretty good.
He actually had an- Now, I think the only problem that comes up there is when it comes to religion issues, because
Right.
there is, and I cannot remember the group, the religious group that if they mention that they're of that particular group, you cannot get a blood draw.
Really?
Yeah, because it goes against their religious beliefs about having fluids taken out or even put in.
Well, we're down to 3
So-
minutes.
Okay.
So it's kind of one of those interesting stuff. But folks, I've got to push Come and Talk It. It is absolutely phenomenal.
It's a good radio program.
It's just some great stuff. I've got to.
And you can hear it again and again on that. I like the
Yeah,
way the station does
it's got a great podcast. It's got a great podcast.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then this Sunday we're going to talk about the TABC and
Oh, my God.
the new proposed rule to allow alcohol at the gun show, which is going to be a sticky
I
little
had that
subject
tape
there.
on there to play. We're not going
Right.
to get to play that one either.
Right. So we're going to talk about that issue. You know.
That's everybody needs.
So and they're
Beer
talking
at the
about
gun show.
they're talking about not having
Yeah.
shows. I mean, they're talking about not allowing shows at places that do offer.
beer.
Beer,
Yeah,
right.
I've never had
Well,
beer at the gun show before.
The thing is, they started off in 2 weeks ago with saying one thing about what the rule was going to propose, and then they kind of backpedaled a little bit and changed as of last week. So
Would he support returning the gun shows to city property?
So long as there is a clear and unequivocal set of policies that everybody can comply with, I don't see why there's a problem. It's a source of revenue. I'm
At 2 minutes.
a gun supporter. I believe in our Second Amendment rights. I understand the issues that came up with the county. I unfortunately think that sometimes we let ideology drive practicality, and the reality is I think that there's nothing wrong with allowing it so long as we have a clear set of guidelines and everybody follows those for everybody's safety, protection.
outstanding.
Excellent. Well, folks, we want to thank you guys again. We want to thank Robert Thomas for being on the show again, talking about his candidacy. Michael, we want to thank you again for Come and Talk It. Just great stuff. I got to tell you, you cannot hype up that show enough. I mean, because it's just phenomenal. I'm serious. I mean, I'm not trying to suck up to you. I mean, but it's just one of those things that's actually really cool stuff. Because where else are you going to hear about gun laws? Having a conversation with an attorney and people that support gun, that support the use of guns and the laws that we have.
topic.
It's a hot topic. And what's funny is that you will not hear anybody come on and speak negatively about it. Why? Because they don't want to hear the truth.
Right.
In all honesty, I gotta
Because
say,
we actually we lay it out there, here are the pros and the cons, and this is what the law says, this is what you should do, and watch out for this.
Well, in the last
It's
30
better than-
seconds,
it's better than PBS.
I'd have to say that this was the last show we were planning to do with all candidates from just one district. We'll probably do more shows with candidates, but they'll be from different districts. So if we give you an invitation, maybe you can come on back on.
I look forward to it and I appreciate it.
It's still some time before the elections, so
A lot of time for
we'll
the
see
election.
what we can do.
We are very
Well,
close.
there's only so many Mondays left before the election.
Early voting, October 20th.
excellent.
5 seconds. Anyway,
folks-
appreciate you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much for being on the show, and we will see you guys next week.
Tim, bye. I don't know what we got 15:30, but